So I thought we could finish the theme in the first part of our session this morning, and then after our tactile moment in the courtyard, we can talk about any other questions or topics that you'd like to raise that come out of these talks, and also give you a little bit of update on Bombo and other aspects of the life of the community. So we've been speaking about this transition in the spiritual journey that is life, from the feeling of a loneliness, of isolation, of separateness, into or through the discovery of solitude, which is the recognition and acceptance of our uniqueness, and in that solitude, discovering that we belong to an indestructible, eternal web of relationships, that there is no loneliness at the heart of reality. The heart of reality is expressed in this great symbol of the Trinity, a community, a communion, a self-fulfilling and a self-transcending dynamism of love, which is being itself. This is the very nature of being. And we don't know really what being is. What we know is existence. Existence, the word exist, literally is to stand outside, existare. So it's to emerge from being into something that we can see, touch, be conscious of, self-conscious of. Something that is in itself good. Existence, creation, is good in itself because it has come out of being. It is the creation or the self-expression or the breathing out of being. And therefore, everything that exists in itself is good, has this divine quality, this divine essence, this quality of being. So there's nothing in ourselves as human beings with all our complexities, nothing in the natural world, anywhere, that does not in some way manifest its origin, its divine presence. So it has the divine in it. That's why Blake said if we could cleanse the doors of perception, if we could just learn to see what is really there, to see things as they really are, then we would see everything as it is, which he says is infinite. We would see the boundlessness of it, the generosity of it, and the belovedness of it, that it has been created out of love, for love, and with love. So that's, anyway, what we've been talking about. We start necessarily with a feeling of exclusion. That's certainly at the heart of loneliness, is the feeling I'm excluded. If you're at a reception or a party and you don't know anybody there and everybody else is having a great time and you're wandering around feeling a stranger and feeling, there's that feeling of exclusion. I don't belong, I don't fit in. They don't like me. I mean, all of these feelings of inadequacy and the soft side of the ego, which is universal, even in the biggest ego, it's there. So this is a source of suffering, and if this feeling of exclusion, being outside, being separated from, if that becomes too intense, it becomes very disabling and handicapping. It prevents us from fulfilling our potential and from expanding into that boundlessness, which is our meaning and purpose. As it were, we've come out of being, we come into existence, we wake up, the awakening mind begins to see itself and see the world in which it exists. But the meaning of this is that we are on our journey back into being, back into a fully awakened experience of being, or fully awakened participation in being. Not experience of being so much, but participation in being. I have come that you may have life, life in all its fullness, Jesus says. And Jesus, in the Christian understanding, is not just somebody we imitate. Of course, the world would be a much happier and better place if we put his teaching and his example into practice. But in the deeper Christian understanding, Jesus is our way as the existential expression of being to participate in being itself, to share in the very nature of God, as even the scriptures say. God became human so that human beings might become God. That's the mantra of the early Christian teachers. So, our way into this depth of meaning, to see our life as moving on from this feeling of separateness or loneliness, existential loneliness, and to see it as an expansion into a participation in being. That's our meaning. And if we don't have that sense of meaning, that feeling of meaning, then our life begins to contract. We begin to become more and more isolated. It's all a matter of degree. But the beginning of the awakening is and must be this feeling of existential loneliness. This is where we start. And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be motivated to go beyond it. And that's why, at a certain point, we can look back at our loneliness and we can say at our sinfulness, at our sense of exclusion, of our despair or our depression or our whatever, our darkness, we can look back on that and say, oh, happy fault. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have been kicked into this awakening and into this expanding awareness of my participation in being. So that's what we've been looking at, and we've been looking at various aspects of that and the various qualities that we benefit from developing and understanding, such as generosity and forbearance or perseverance, patience, and so on. And we've looked also at the way meditation becomes, at a certain point in this journey, a great gift. A great gift that allows us to embrace the meaning of our life as a journey into and back into a fully awakened being. To understand meditation as a gift rather than as something we have to master, something that is a steep mountain we have to climb, something that is embarrassing us because we want to meditate but we don't, or that gives us a feeling that we're not good meditators. So rather than thinking of it in those more egocentric ways, we benefit from understanding it as a gift. And that's why I think we're discovering now how important it is and necessary to introduce meditation to children right at the beginning of their life. Because I've never heard a child say, I'm not a good meditator. I've never heard a child say, I can't do it, I don't have time. What the child will say is, I like it. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel peaceful. Now, the language they use will obviously be made up of the vocabulary that they've heard, but the way they describe the experience of meditation is that of receiving a gift. And they sort of take it for granted. They don't thank you. They don't say, well, thank you so much for your 30-second introduction to meditation, because that's all they need. They just receive the gift, and their gratitude and what they communicate to us is in the way they receive the gift. That's how they show they're thankful by doing it. And they can teach us a lot. I asked a little girl the other day, she told me that she meditates at home, as most of them choose to meditate on their own when they feel like it. And I said to this little girl, when do you meditate? And she said, I meditate at home if I have a fight with my sister. And what a great insight. When she has a fight with her sister, she feels excluded from the love of her sister, the love of the family, from peace, from harmony, from being how she knows she can be and should be. And she wants to recover that feeling of harmony and balance and so on in herself. And she knows that meditation will do that. It's just experiential. She doesn't have to think about it. She just knows if she meditates, she will get over that feeling of anger or hurt that's broken her relationship with her sister. So, meditation is a great gift. Can you survive without meditation? Yes, we could survive without meditation. Will you get to heaven without meditation? Yes, you can get to heaven without meditation, I'm sure. But what a great gift it is, and why look that gift horse in the mouth? Why refuse the gift? Why convince ourselves that we are not worthy of the gift or we're not capable of the gift? Why not approach the gift in a childlike way, as Jesus advises us to do? No one can enter the kingdom of heaven unless they become like a child. And the child has this capacity just to receive a gift and show gratitude by receiving it. You don't have to buy it or earn it, you just have to receive it. Meditation also makes it possible, I think, for us, we were talking yesterday of different levels or different ways in which meditation advances our journey of life and our growth in consciousness through making us more aware, more observant, more in touch with reality as it is, on the one hand. On the other, that it leads us to ever deeper insight, experience of reality as it is, not as we perceive it or as we describe it. So meditation has, as a great gift, enables us to deepen and to integrate these aspects of our life's journey. So meditation is a life skill, we could say, that enables us to live life more fully. You can get by without it, just as you could get by without tasty food or good wine or, a comfortable pillow or things that make life a little easier and more delightful. And also gives us, very fundamentally, the freedom to turn our attention away from ourselves, away from what we don't have, away from what we are fantasizing about, away from our complaints, and towards the well-being of others. And this is the essential mechanism, really, of consciousness that puts us in the fast track, which is where we should be. We should be in the fast track. And this ability then, or this capacity we have, to be concerned about the well-being of others, even before we are concerned about our own, that is our most godlike capacity. That shows us what it is like to be God. It shows us that we have this destiny to be divinized. Now, it may flicker for us and come and go. We may have moments where we experience this agape, this intuitive and immediate concern for others, the well-being of others. And then we sort of revert, we click back into our self-centeredness, into our narrowness. Nevertheless, you only need to have seen it once or felt it once to know that you can return to it, and that this is the deeper truth and the fuller meaning of your existence. And so you only need to have felt it once to be able to commit yourself to it. That's what the Shantideva was saying. You just have to commit yourself to this as an ideal. In gospel terms, it's following Jesus, taking refuge in him through the Spirit. Not only in Jesus, remember, as a historical figure who gave some great teachings, but as a living master, as a present reality. So it's always difficult to speak about these things, and it's always ambivalent, whatever we say about these realities in the spiritual realm. And yet we need to. We need to hear about it, we need to reflect on it, we need to think intelligently about it, we need to discuss it, we need to have our thoughts and images about it challenged or enriched by dialogue with other traditions. We need to, and yet we also need to know that we will always fail to express it or to understand it. Sometimes we really fail because we take our words literally, or we begin to worship the images rather than the truth. And this is why the mystical tradition is of such importance to the health of religion in all traditions. St. Gregory of Nyssa said, every image or every idea of God is an idol. It's quite a dramatic statement to make. Every idea or image we have of God is an idol, or we would say has a tendency to lead us into idolatry, because we take the image or the idea as the gospel truth. And so we need continually to try to express it. We have this aspect of our consciousness, our mind, our intelligence. We need to try to awaken the mind through these gifts as well. But we also have to realize that this will always fall short, and we need to go back into the silence. So it's very easy, and religious people frequently do it, to get stuck in intellectualizing or verbalizing or ritualizing this way, this journey. We turn it into something intellectual or verbal, dogmatic, or ritualistic. We need those forms of expression. That's how we are, just as we need to eat and drink and breathe. We need to have this symbolic life as well. But we also have to learn how to let go of it. The Buddhists say that there are two kinds of truth. There's the conventional truth and there's the ultimate truth. So we have to respect the conventional truth that we express in words, images, thoughts. But we also have to remember and respect that the ultimate truth is beyond those forms of expression. The Christian tradition says exactly the same thing. Theologically, we have the cataphatic approach to theology, to prayer, to God, which means we use thoughts, words, and images, and ritual and symbols. But we also need the apophatic, it's our meditation, in which we lay aside all these thoughts, words, and images. And that using and laying aside is the rhythm of the spiritual life. Otherwise, we'd just be breathing in all the time, we'd never breathe out. Or we'd only be breathing out and we'd never breathe in. So we need both. That's the realm of existence we're in, the rhythm. And once we get that rhythm going in our spiritual aspect of life, then we begin to get the rhythm of life in other ways as well. That's why the rhythm of meditation is so transformative. The morning meditation and the evening meditation. That's a very basic rhythm. And many, of course, all of us struggle at first to get that rhythm. And so sometimes we don't meditate at all, or we go on a binge of meditation and then give it up. Or we get into the habit of meditating once a day. It's better than not meditating at all. Wanting to meditate is better than not wanting to meditate. Knowing about meditation is better than not knowing about meditation. But better is actually to do it twice a day. It may take however long it takes for us to get into that stride, into that rhythm. And once we do, it's quite amazing how other rhythms of life, internal and external, physical and mental and emotional, begin to become harmonized in the way meditation changes our life. Meditation also reminds us that our focus is not upon experience as something that we remember or imagine or anticipate. So it's not about nostalgia or about desire. That the experience that matters is the direct, real experience which is participation. It's not like ordinary experience as we think about it in daily life and as we put into our diaries or into our journals or speak about with friends about what have you been doing since we last met. It's not that kind of experience. That's important too, of course, that we reflect upon what's happened to us and how we're changing and what new things we've discovered. But that's not the experience. It's not what we mean by the experience of meditation or the experience of God. It's the direct, real experience, which is the only truth that will set us free, as Jesus said. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What are we set free from? We're set free from nostalgia and sadness and looking backwards, being trapped in the past, and we're set free from our cycle of desire and anticipation and wondering what's going to happen next and hoping that this will happen and that won't happen. So that's what we're set free from, so that we can actually be fully alive in the present. And that's our journey from loneliness to the solitude of God. On that journey, the first beatitude is poverty of spirit, which resonates very much with the meaning of sunyata, or emptiness, in the Buddhist tradition. Emptiness does not mean nothingness. It's not something negative, just as poverty doesn't mean that you don't have anything. It's not deficiency. We use these terms because they can shock our minds into thinking about what they really mean. So poverty doesn't mean that you don't have anything. It means you don't grasp anything, that you're not possessed by what you want to possess. And emptiness doesn't mean that nothing exists. It means that everything that exists in a certain way, which is in conformity with being. In other words, everything that is interdependent. Nothing is isolated, nothing is lonely, nothing is independent. Everything participates in this web of being. And also, in this realm of existence, everything is temporary. All things pass away and change their form and shape. If you don't believe that, look at your photograph album or try on a pair of trousers from 10 years ago. And we change, constantly changing. So this is the meaning of emptiness, and it's very close to the meaning of poverty of spirit. Meditation, the rhythm of meditation each day, teaches us this by direct instruction, by direct experience. If we know this poverty of spirit, then we are in the truth. We're living truthfully, and therefore we are living peacefully, meaningfully. And in that truthfulness, we see things as they truly are, and we can understand how we can live day by day, through all our relationships, the basic commandment. To love as God loves. So the question that we keep coming back to, it's not a verbal question or even a conceptual question, but the experiential reality that we keep coming back to is not a truth that we find and put in the deep freeze of dogma or institution, but it's the truth that emerges from our experience. And that truth is going to be much better expressed in the form of a question than in the form of a statement or an answer. Now, that's not a comfortable way of thinking. It won't get you through immigration. It won't satisfy your bank manager or your tax collector, or it won't maybe get you through an exam. But in what really matters in life, this is the truth, that we come closer to the truth through a question deeply listened to the point that we are no longer verbalizing or conceptualizing it, but actually touching the horizon that the question has led us to. And perhaps the most central question, most universal question is, who am I? That's the constant test of our journey. And the test of the practice of that question is another question: who is my neighbor? That was a question that they asked Jesus. Remember when they asked him, what is the greatest commandment? And he said, love the Lord your God and your neighbor as yourself. And then the person who was asking him the question said, yes, but who's my neighbor? And then he told the story of the Good Samaritan. And who is my neighbor? My neighbor is ultimately who I recognize to be my neighbor. It's the person in whom I see myself and who is already within me. That's my neighbor. And that applies to everyone, good and bad alike, the just and the unjust, the friend and the enemy. There is no one, in other words, whom we are not called to see as our neighbor. So who am I? That's the question we're practicing in meditation. And the question, who is my neighbor? Who do I love as I love myself? It really comes to the same question. In the same way that in the story of Julian of Norwich, the Adam who had fallen into the pit, the ditch, and got stuck, and the son who had been sent to rescue him become merged, become the same person.